Jackie Robinson, and Branch Rickey wanted to change segregation in sports. While others figured segregation should stay, Rickey and Robinson didn't. Rickey changed this by signing Robinson to the Brooklyn Dodgers in the 1940s. They both contributed to breaking the color line in baseball. This action enforced the end of segregation in other sports. Branch Rickey once said, "I cannot face my God much longer knowing that his black creatures are held separate and distinct from his white creatures that are in the game that has given me all that I call my own." When the American colonies had started, they took people from Africa and made them their slaves. This happened in the year 1619 and went on for about 200 years until the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. It was a document banishing all slavery. It was signed in the 1860s. Slavery had not been around since. However, there was still racial segregation.
This was a time and age where blacks were segregated from using the same drinking fountains, restaurants, bathrooms, and other things. Jackie had to eat at different restaurants than the rest of the team when they were on the road. He had to sleep in different hotels as well. However, this did not faze Jackie one bit.
He was called names and was threatened by rowdy fans and sometimes teammates. He sometimes even got death threats. Branch Rickey knew this was going to happen, and so did Jackie. He knew he had to abstain from arguing, or he would not be allowed to play. While white men could argue all they wanted to and only get in a bit of trouble, Robinson knew his arguments would not be tolerated.
The Negro Leagues were formed in the 1920s. There were 29 teams in the Negro Leagues. All blacks had to play in the Negro Leagues at the time. People thought the Negro Leagues were different but very equal. The only difference was the fact that there were blacks in one and whites in the other. They did not have as much people in attendance, and their standards were much lower than the MLB. The players were good enough to play in the major leagues, but they were excluded because they were black.
Jackie Robinson grew up without much money and without a father. When money was tight, his mother decided to move to Pasadena, California, from Cairo, Georgia. Jackie attended John Muir High School in 1935. From high school, he then went on to attend UCLA. Jackie, being as athletic as he was, lettered in football, baseball, basketball, and track. He then graduated and later fought in World War II. After he was honorably discharged from the Army, he decided to join the Negro Leagues. The year was 1945. He played for the Kansas City Monarchs. Clyde Sukeforth, a scout for Branch Rickey, went to a game and saw Robinson play. He went and told Robinson about Rickey and how he wanted to start his own Negro Leagues called the Brown Dodgers. During the meeting, Branch got the idea to possibly put Robinson on the MLB team. He talked to him about the Brooklyn Dodgers afterward. On August 28, 1945, Branch Rickey asked Jackie to meet with him to discuss the details about the situation.
Branch Rickey was one of the most well-known baseball executives in history. However, he was the most hypocritical baseball executive. He was the type of man who would play fast and lose with the rules and then go back to his word when he felt like it. Branch said that Jackie might be playing in the major league. He wanted to tell him the situation he might be in if he decides to play. Say if you slide into second and the second baseman spikes your leg so bad you start bleeding, what would you do? Asked Rickey. Robinson replied, "Dust myself off and head back to the dugout."
"That's good. I want a ball player who has enough guts not to fight back," Rickey said. Rickey kept bringing up different scenarios, and Robinson kept giving him the same answer, that he was not going to fight back. That Rickey had hoped for. After the meeting, Jackie Robinson was signed to the Montreal Royals, an international farm team of the Brooklyn Dodgers. A year later, he put on number 42, and on April 15, 1947, he made his Major League debut against the Boston Braves.
People had many different opinions about Jackie playing Major League Baseball. Some liked the fact that an African-American man was getting the chance to play baseball. Others were appalled that the MLB would allow a black man to play baseball with white men. It also could possibly cause the end of the Negro Leagues, a big source of income for Major League teams. People slammed Rickey for signing Robinson. They thought Rickey signed him just to get all the media publicizing the Dodgers. However, there was not a set rule that blacks couldn't play in the MLB. It was rather a policy to not let African Americans play with white men. Branch Rickey was the first to disobey that rule when he signed Jackie.
It was a rocky start for Jackie. He was hit by 6 pitches in his first 37 games. Pee Wee Reese was one of Jackie's friends on and off the field. He supported Jackie when he was booed by the crowd and when he was treated unfairly. When the team passed around a petition that said they would not play if Jackie was signed, Reese did not sign. On their first away game, the crowd started to yell at Jackie. Reese went up to Robinson and put his arm around him, a gesture of support.
Rickey's decision to sign Robinson was the subject of much debate. Some said he was trying to corner the market for talented baseball players. However, if that statement were true, an explanation like that would be insufficient. Every baseball executive had the same self-interest, but none of them had the same interest that Rickey did. Most of the team owners were mad at Rickey when they found out what he was up to, because when the MLB teams were on the road, they would rent their stadiums to the Negro Leagues. If they were integrated, the Negro Leagues would be no more, and the MLB teams would lose the money that was brought in from those games.
The plan to have Robinson enter the major leagues had its successes and failures. It succeeded in breaking the color barrier, but it was not an easy task. He had to put up with ridicule and hatred. The Dodgers had a record attendance the year Jackie was signed. The people either wanted to see a black man play baseball or they wanted to threaten him. It is necessary to challenge the status quo to make a change when someone is being treated unfairly like Jackie was. But sometimes it is necessary to address the conflict through the debate. Jackie's experience was through the challenge of the status quo. Sometimes you have to do the unthinkable in order to change something. Jackie did just that. Debate leads to change by getting people to switch their point of view. There have been famous debates all over the world. The Kennedy-Nixon debate and the Lincoln-Douglas debate are among many. The debate of whether or not to let Jackie play in the majors involved many different people. Black men and women, also white men and women, had their say. Willie Mays, a black Negro League player, said, "Robinson was important to all blacks. To make it into majors and to take all the name-calling, he had to be special. He had to take all of this for years, not just for himself, but for the whole nation." One unanimous note was left for Robinson saying, "Robinson, we are going to kill you if you attempt to enter the ballgame at Crossley Field." It was signed by a hate group called the Travelers. The concerns of black people were that they would not be seen as equal at the time. The concerns of whites was that they wanted to keep blacks out of their so-called pastime. The black people were not very involved in the debate, not because they didn't want to, rather they weren't really allowed in the debate. The whites didn't want the blacks to have a say whether Jackie could play. They decided to do something about it, so the blacks had protests that were geared towards letting Jackie play. This was their only say they had in the issue. At the time, there were not many blacks that were important that had to do with baseball.
Throughout all this, Robinson quickly became one of the league's best known and star player, and in the end, Rickey's decision proved to be a spectacular success. Robinson's performance under unimaginable pressure was truly one of the greatest athletic feats, if not the greatest, in American history. It changed athletics from that time on.
Jackie Robinson was the first colored man to play baseball. With the help of Branch Rickey, he succeeded, and baseball was affected ever since. Branch Rickey wanted Robinson, and he got him. Rickey signed Robinson because he was good and because he wanted segregation to end, and in the end, that's what happened. Robinson eventually teamed up with Martin Luther King Jr. to fight for African American civil rights. Together, they helped the movement to change segregation. He is still honored today as the man who has changed baseball forever.
Jackie Robinson said, "I'm not concerned with you liking me or disliking me. All I ask is that you respect me as a human being."